This video contains an ad for Loot Studios. Shadowbagetta, it's me Martina from Nerdforge, and today we're gonna do something really awesome. We're currently in the midst of winter here in Norway, and everything is just dark and cold, and everything's covered in ice and snow. And so I wanted to use that as inspiration for this project. I want to create a cold, frosty, Viking-inspired diorama because this is a theme we haven't really explored much before. So, since it's so freaking cold on the outside, why not make something equally cold on the inside, you know? Fight ice with ice! I just think a Viking theme is gonna be the perfect theme to capture that winter mood. The first thing we have to make is the base. I'm gonna use this 3mm plywood sheet because it's really lightweight and sturdy, and this isn't really gonna be a very heavy diorama. The next step is to take this giant chunk of XPS foam and make it more landscapey. Can I say that? Landscapey? Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll just put on some disproportionately epic music and get started. It's looking really good so far, and just to go quickly through what I've already done, I used this plywood that I cut out as the base, then attached some XPS foam on top that I kind of carved into the basic landscape I wanted, and then I created some rock surfaces. And it's actually really simple to do because you just take some aluminum foil, fold it in half, crinkle it into a little ball, and then fold it out again. Create a little bowl that you can pour some plaster into, and then you have these rock surfaces that you can just kind of smash with a hammer and use as little Lego pieces to create these rock surfaces. And now it looks like this. I'm gonna add some smaller rocks on top here just to make it a little more realistic. So this is called foam coat. It's like a gritty type of plaster thing, and I'm just gonna mix it with a little bit of water. And I'm adding a little at a time because it can get very runny very fast. We got it mixed up, so now let's apply it to mainly the flat surfaces and especially where we want those extra rocks. Something like that. And now I'm gonna begin with the larger size rocks. Just grab a little handful, sprinkle it like where it seems natural that they have kind of fallen down, rolled down the hill here, a little bit up here. And then the medium-sized rocks. We got all the rocks on, but if I try to move this around now, everything's just gonna roll off the whole thing. So I'm gonna have to seal this, and I'm just gonna use some Mod Podge, mix it with some water to make it really runny, and then kind of just drip it all over so it soaks into all that gravel. Hoping that it will just like run naturally down the landscape where water would go and bring the gravel with it, just adding to the realistic effect. I've covered everything in the glue, so now he just has to rest for a little bit and dry up, and we can revisit it in a couple of days.
Hey guys, it's me, Hansi, and while Martina has been working on some stuff that is now curing, I am gonna 3D print something on this marvelous resin 3D printer. First of all, I'm gonna have to wear my leather apron because I always mess up my clothes when I'm working with this sticky resin stuff. It's not my favorite part of the day because it gets everywhere and you have to like wear vinyl gloves and it smells bad. But it is the best method of producing miniatures that we at least know of. Because the other 3D printing method that layers the plastic on top of each other, it's not super great for the details, whereas a resin printer is very good for the details. I have loaded up the models on this USB stick and we're just gonna watch the magic happens. Hopefully, because this fails 2 out of 3 times. So let's do it. Most of these prints actually succeeded. There was one fail, but I'm gonna have to print some more later anyway, so I can just add that, so that's not gonna be a problem. Now, what you saw me do was to clean it in some alcohol, and that's just to remove some of the residue resin that is in the nooks and crannies here. And then I cured it in the UV chamber, which will just make sure that all the resin is hard and ready to go. But now that this is done, we can prime them, and then they are ready to be painted.
As you might be able to tell from my faded hair color, it's been a while. We started working on this like before Christmas and it's now January and you know, been holidays. But I am super ready to get back into this and start working on this again because I want to make it look good. Because right now it's like a blob of yellow rocks. But this should at least be completely cured now that it's been so long. So I guess now we can finally start making this look good because we're gonna start painting it and make this all look like rock. So let me just find my paint and we can get started. Painting rock isn't exactly the easiest thing. Because, you know, rocks aren't just gray. They are yellow and brown and green and all kinds of different colors at the same time while they still look gray. So, you know, thanks, rocks. But we gotta start somewhere. So we're gonna start with covering this whole thing in like a medium kind of gray. And then we're gonna use some different browns and yellows and stuff to create some color variation in the rock. So without further ado, let's get painting. It's looking kind of nasty with all these colors. It's like a weird polka dot pattern. But we're gonna bring it all together now by applying some black wash. It's just black paint and water. Spray it on the whole thing and it's gonna make it look like one piece again. I might have gone a little too dark here, but you know, I can always add the color back in later. But now we're gonna start dry brushing this using some different grays and some white. The paint job is finished and I'm super happy with how it turned out. Like, I think it looks pretty realistic. It might look a little dark now, but I think once we put the snow on top here, it's just gonna create a really nice contrast. But before we get to the snow, I wanna make this look as nice and as realistic as I can, and then kind of just dab the snow on top, as you would in real life. So I'm gonna use some grass flocks, some grass tufts, and some of these clump foliage things to create some grass here, some bushes, and then we're gonna apply the snow on top of that later. So let me find my glue and we can put some foliage on this thing. We got the foliage on, and at this point I was originally planning to start putting on the snow effects, but I realized that I'm gonna have to paint some of the miniatures now because we have to blend them in with the landscape. Especially this shipwreck that is going down here and this like power crystal up here, because I'm gonna make like an epoxy river down here. So these have to be cast in the epoxy, and I have to do that before I do the snow effects. The order of operations is a little difficult to plan beforehand. So we're gonna paint the miniatures we need to blend in now, and then try to blend it in as best we can with what we have. I'm gonna find my miniature paint and we can do some painting. I just finished painting these miniatures, and these are really just the ones we need before we're gonna make the river here. There are gonna be more miniatures later, but for now, these are just the ones we're gonna use. I'm gonna have to attach these to the landscape and then use some foam coat to try to blend it in with the rest. And yes, obviously, this would have been a lot easier to do if I had done it from the start, but it's hard to plan everything. So I'm just gonna show you how I solve my mistakes. I'm just gonna glue these in place where I want them, apply some foam coat, and then try to paint over it and blend it in with what we already have. There we go! That was actually a really quick fix, and now they actually look like they belong in the landscape. That means we can start working on the water. I want this to have like a cracked, frozen lake look. Like this shipwreck right here just came crashing through the waves and just broke into a million pieces and then sunk from the damage. I'm gonna try some techniques I haven't actually used before, and I found these methods through Geek Gaming Scenics here on YouTube. He makes some really amazing stuff, so I really recommend checking out his channel. Now, first of all, we're gonna have to make some cracked ice flakes that we can put around the ship and around the shore. We're gonna make that by using some epoxy resin and casting it in a thin sheet that we're gonna tint white. Then we can take that sheet, crack it into smaller pieces, and then gonna use those as pestle pieces to place around the ship, around the shore, and make that look like cracked ice. Let's just mix up a little bit of resin and we can do the casting. And now I'm gonna add a little bit of white, just a drop or two. So now we pour. And now we wait. But now, before we move on, it's time for an ad for Loot Studios, which is a great service that we've been using for, well, a bit more than a year now. Loot Studios is a monthly subscription service that delivers high quality, super realistic and detailed fantasy models. So every month, subscribers get a bundle of 3D printing files with different themes every time. Like for example, the Oasis, Tile Collectors, or the Valhalla packs that we've been using in this project. This month's theme is called Cult of Hunger, which contains some amazing heroes, frightening enemies like gnolls and cultists, environment objects, character busts, and the most amazing thing, a whole cathedral. I mean, just look at this thing, it looks incredible, and it's huge! And as a bonus, all the models come pre-supported and unsupported in 32 and 75mm scales. Also, as a subscriber, you get access to an exclusive painting tutorial every month, as well as access to their Facebook and Discord communities. So if you think this sounds interesting, new members get access to the bundle of the month, in this case Cult of Hunger, plus a tavern-themed welcome pack. So make sure to check out the link down below. And back to the project. The ice is looking so promising. I really like how translucent it is and the color and the kind of glitter effect it has, but we have to contain our excitement and wait to see what that will look like, because the epoxy has to cure for like a day or something more to get properly cured. So in the meantime, I'm gonna work on the remaining 3D models we're gonna have in here. And our main character is going to be this guy who's fighting through the snow. He's climbing up the hill here towards the power crystal, together with his wolf friend who's there to protect him. Just to add a little environment detail, we're gonna have this fireplace somewhere around here, and maybe we'll put some lights under it. Who knows? I mean, it's us, of course we're gonna put lights in it. All of these have to be painted, so I'm gonna find my paint and we'll get back into the painting. I just finished painting the miniatures and I think they turn out decent. It's not an amazing paint job, but I think once we put everything together in the landscape, everything is just gonna complement each other and together it's gonna look good, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna put these to the side because now the ice, it's cured. And it's completely hard now. And I think that's important to be able to break this properly. So I think we can now take this off and try to break it into pieces so we can use those and try to make this a river. I mixed up some resin here and I just used some clear packaging tape around the edges here, so now it hopefully won't leak. And we got our ice shards down here. So I'm just gonna pour the rest in and then wait until it's like a jelly consistency before I start applying the ice shards. And that is just to make sure that the ice kind of lays on top of the surface instead of sinking to the bottom. So let's do the pour. The water is almost finished. I think the ice flakes turned out really good and the Mod Podge works pretty well as water effects. The one thing that's remaining here is to add some snow at the edge here to kind of blend that into the ice. But before we do the snow effects, we're gonna add the little fireplace up here. And to make that, I'm gonna use some candlelight LEDs, these very small, cute ones, together with a simple battery pack and a switch, just to make sure that I can actually, turn it off and on. And once that's in place, we can use some hot glue to create some fire. And then finally, we can add the trees and the snow. It's time to finish this. I did one final thing after I applied the snow flock before I added all the miniatures, and that was I sprayed everything with some matte acrylic varnish. And I really had to keep a distance, because it just made the snow fly all over the place. But that was to make sure everything stayed in place without clumping it with Mod Podge or something like that. So now there's just a super thin coating over everything that keeps the snow in place. But yeah, it's finally finished! Before we have a look at the final result, I just have a couple of thoughts about the project. Low-key, I kind of liked it better before I added the snow, not gonna lie. But at the same time, I don't regret adding the snow because, you know, I tried something new. I had a lot of fun trying to figure out how to do all the ice effects and the snow effects. For my first snow diorama, I don't think I did too bad. And I also think this is one of the most challenging dioramas I've ever done. Oh, and I just wanted to remind you that we have these two awesome products in our web store, and the cutting mats have just started shipping out, and it's so much fun seeing you guys receiving them on Instagram, so don't hesitate to tag us in a picture once you get it. And finally, thank you so much to our patrons for sticking with us here in January, even though it's been a long time since the previous upload. But more is coming, don't worry. And now it's time. Let's have a look at the final result.